so we're going to be doing test number 1 review together. So let's start. Make sure you have your name on it and what class you are in. It's the first thing you want to put. Alright, so number 1, the number of laps you can run in an hour, and the other variable is the speed you run. So from here, all we need to determine is the independent and dependent variable. Which one do you think is going to be the independent variable?
The speed you run.
So you're saying the speed.
Yeah, the speed.
And you're saying what? The number of laps you run in an hour?
Yeah.
So, okay, remember, if we're going to use the sentence from earlier this week, we're going to have the dependent depends on the independent variable. So, let's try plugging them in. The speed you run depends on the number of laps you run in an hour?
No.
Or the number of laps you run in an hour depends on the speed you run?
Yes.
So the speed you run is the independent. So I'm just going to write speed. And then the dependent is going to be the number of laps. Good. Alright, so keeping this in mind, number 2, the number of books you can buy at Barnes & Noble's and how much money you have.
How much money you have?
How much money you have depends on the number of books you buy. And I'm going to say it the other way. The number of books you can buy depends on how much money you have. That second one, right? So the number of books you can buy depends on. So the number of books is the dependent, and how much money you have is the independent, because that's a set amount. So independent is the money, and the dependent is the number of books. So it helps if you say it both ways. Plug them into that little sentence. Number 3, a taxi charges $3.80 plus $6 for each mile. The equation that represents this function is y equals 0.60x plus 380. Identify the independent and dependent variable. So we always said that y is going to be the dependent and the x is always the independent variable. Always, always. So what did y stand for? Was it the miles or was it the charge? The charge. Because how much you're getting charged depends on how many miles you went. And x is the number of miles. So your miles is what you control. And depending on how many miles you went, you're going to have to pay. So I'll put taxi charge. Alright, so we have another independent-dependent question down here. Number 4. Bobby shops for a used truck after qualifying for a loan with an interest rate of 3.02% interest on the truck. I'm sorry, interest on the truck is a function of, so that's just another way of saying depends on, kind of like we did up here, of its price. What is the independent? So in the sentence, blank depends on blank. The independent, does it come first or last? Last, good. So what comes last? What's the last part of that? The price. So the price is the independent. The price of what? What are we talking about?
Interest.
What are we buying? The price of the truck. Do y'all need me to zoom in? Or are we good? Alright, number 5. For Saturday's debate tournament, Sarah ordered 3 cookies for each student participant and a tray of cookies for the sponsor's hospitality room. The relationship can be expressed by the function f of x, which is just another way of saying what letter? Y. Good. So I'm just going to change that to a y because that's something that we're familiar with. So y is equal to 3x plus 30, where x is the number of student participants. What is the dependent quantity? So dependent, is that the x or the y? The y. Good. So what did y stand for? If x is the number of students, what is y? The total number of cookies, right? So that's exactly what we're going to write. So total number of cookies. So there's little key things like what is y, what is x. You have to understand what those variables mean in order to answer the independent dependent. And there's that sign in the back of the room, that back corner by the windows of the independent dependent, and Dr. XY always has his ID. That'll help you guys because that'll be there for the test also. So, next one. Joe is renting the skating rink for his birthday. He finds that there is a base fee of $80 plus a $2 fee for each skater. Write an equation that shows the relationship between the total cost C, so they're telling us what variables to use, and the number of skaters S that attend Joe's party. So I've already started cubbing this paper. I circled all the numbers, the 80 and the 2, boxed in my math words, plus and each. Plus means to do what? Add, and each multiply. Good. So let's start off with the very beginning. 80 plus. Do I need that money sign? No. No, I put the 80. Plus what? $2 times, well, what is skater? X? It's going to be S. And this is equal to what? C, which stood for the... If you put a dot right here, that's fine. Later on, we won't be doing that, but if it helps you to know that's multiplying, that's fine. Yes, putting an X would be wrong because you have to use the variables that they tell you. On your test, some problems will give you variables, use this letter and use this letter, others will not. So if it doesn't give you anything, then make up whatever variable you want, as long as the variables are in the right place. Alright, the next one, write an algebraic equation. So what do we know about equations? What do they have? An equal sign. To represent the given verbal phrase, use x as the variable. 2 more than a number divided by 12 is 20. Okay, I'm going to move this up so y'all can see it. And I'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. Alright, so let's start with the very, very left. 2 more than. What does more than mean? To add. But what is that key word that does something to the 2? Puts it to the back. But what word? Not more than, but just one word. Then. Good. So this word then is going to take the 2, moves it to the back. We said more means to add. 2 more than a number. What variable did they tell us to use? Good. Divided by what? Divided by 12. Is means equals, and then 20. And we're done. So take it piece by piece. Don't try to take the whole thing. Do it small part by small part. Alright, number 8. Tamara has a cell phone plan that charges 0.07, so 7 cents per minute, plus a monthly fee of $19. If she paid $29.50 for her bill. Write an equation that represents the situation. So first question, are they telling us what variables to use?
No.
No. Do we have a total amount here though?
Yes.
What is it?
29.
And what does that $29.50 mean? That's how much she paid for the bill, right? The phone bill. So the total's always going to go by itself. I'll move this up for you. So how are we getting to that $29.50? We're going to add something, and we're also going to multiply something. So what is the base fee, the monthly fee, no matter if she uses that phone or not? $19. And then we're going to add what to that? 7 cents. And don't forget it's 0.07. And what do you want to use for minutes? M? If you used X, that's fine. If you are putting the dot to show that it's multiplying, be careful that it doesn't look like a decimal. Make sure it's high enough or thick enough circle that it doesn't look like a decimal. Okay? I think that's it for that problem. So anytime you have a total amount, make sure you put it by itself. Go ahead and flip it over. Almost done. Your test is not long either. I want to say it's 1 page front and back. Also. Okay. So I'm not going to zoom out all the way. You have your paper, you can read it. Marcus has accepted a job selling cell phones. He will be paid $1,500 plus 15% of his sales each month. He needs to earn at least $2,430 to pay his bills. Write an inequality to determine the amount of sales Marcus will need to pay his bills. Let A equal the amount of sales. So let's go through and just circle all of our numbers first. So you have the 1,500, 15%, and what do we know about percents? What do we have to do? Make it a decimal, right? Move it 2 spaces over. Then you have the 2,430 that he needs. Now let's go through to underline the question or directions. It's that whole last sentence. What's the key word in that last sentence? I'll give you a hint. Yeah, inequality. It's the third word, right? And inequality, what makes that different than an equation? What does it have? The alligators. So what is our total that first we need to box in our math words. Let's do that. So we have plus of at least, because that's very important right there. Anything else that we're missing? Each. Of and each both mean to do what? Multiply. Good. Plus means to add. Okay. So, what is the total that he needs?
2,430.
Good. So, does he want more than that or less than that? Ideally more. So, if the alligator eats this, then we're saying that that's the most money that he wants, which is not true. He wants to be able to go out on a date or do something, right, that weekend. So, he wants more than that. But will he be happy and will he be okay if he just earns $2,430? Yeah, because he paid all his bills. And we'll say that he has gas and groceries too. So, what does he get paid just for showing up to work and being awesome? Good. And then, we're going to add to that what? 15%. Change that percent to a decimal. 0.15. And this was something on your homework that y'all had last week that a lot of you, not just this class, but a lot of classes, didn't change it properly. You have to move it 2 decimal places. So if it's just 8%, it's 0.08 or 0.08. So what are we going to multiply that 0.15 by? His cells. And what variable are we doing for cells?
A.
A. And it had a capital A. And we're done with that one. Jillian is playing in a basketball tournament and scored 24 points in her first game. If she averages, so how do you find the average of something? You add them all up and do what? Divide by
500.
however many numbers or things there are, right? Okay, so keep that in mind. If she averages over 20 points for both games, so both means how many? 2 games. So I'm just going to change that to 2 games. She will receive a trophy. Write an inequality, so that sounds like directions. An inequality means that there's going to be an alligator. Jillian needs to score in the second game to receive a trophy. Let P equal the number of points. So what is her goal? To average how many?
20 points.
Over 20, right? So this is the minimum or maximum? Minimum. So the alligator does not want the minimum. And is it okay? Will she still get a trophy if she averages 20?
No.
Over 20. It says averages over 20. So no. So we're not going to underline it. She won't get that trophy. So there's 2 games that we're going to average. So we know we're going to divide by 2. How many points did she get that first game? And do we know how many she's going to get that second game? No, but what are we going to use? What variable? Good. So what are we going to do with the 24 and the P?
Add.
Good. And we're done. So 20 is less than 24 plus P, all divided by 2. Number 11. I'll move this up for you. A 15-foot tall cedar tree is growing at a rate of, so rate is one of those words that we added to our list last week. What does that mean to do? Multiply. At a rate of 2 feet per year beneath power lines that are 58 feet above the ground. So this is something the city of San Antonio and every other city actually has to look out for. Because what's going to happen if that tree hits the power lines? We're not going to have power, and there goes your Xbox, there goes your Wi-Fi, there goes your life as you know it. So we got to make sure that doesn't happen. So the power company will have to prune or remove the tree before it reaches the lines. Write an inequality, so alligator again, to represent how many years the power company can wait before taking action. Let Y equal the number of years. So how tall is this tree? 15 feet. And what's going to happen? Is it growing or is it shrinking? It's growing. How fast is it growing?
2 feet per year.
2 feet per. Per means 2. Multiply. And year, we're using what letter? Y. And what is that other number that we haven't used yet? 58 feet. And what does that 58 mean? That's where the power lines are. So, question. If that tree gets to 58 feet, will we still have power? No. So we're not going to underline it because we want power. We don't want those two to be equal to each other. So is 58 the maximum or the minimum? Okay, I'm hearing both. It's going to be the maximum because if it's the minimum, then that tree, we're saying we want the tree to be taller than it, which is not true. We want that tree to be smaller. And by not underlining it, we're saying that it could be 57.5 feet, but once we hit 58, that's when we have a problem. Does that make sense? Okay. Last 3 problems right here. Tim has $200 in his savings account, so we'll go ahead and start circling, boxing, and underlining. And wants to buy a computer that'll cost him $450. His mom gives him $20 per week for babysitting his little brother. Write an inequality, so inequality is the key word there, that can be used to determine the number of weeks Tim must babysit in order to have at least $450 to buy a new computer. So what is that key number? What is the number we're trying to get to? $450. Now, is that the minimum that he wants or the maximum that he wants? Minimum, because if he gets more, is he going to be happy? Yeah, he can do something else. So the alligator does not want the minimum, so it's going to go away. What is his starting amount? $200. And we're going to add to this because he's going to get paid. How much is he getting paid? $20 per week. Now, does it tell us anywhere here what variables to use? So what do you want to use for week? W? Could I have used X?
Yes.
Good. You use whatever variable you want, as long as it's not a number. Number 13. To calculate her target heart rate, Shayla subtracted her age, so she subtracts her age A from 220 and then takes 70% of the difference. So we have a percent. How do you change a percent to decimal? Move it 2 times. So what is it going to be? Bless you.
0.7.
0.7. So look here. Is there anything that we can cross out automatically? J, good. Because it's just multiplying the 0.7 times A, her age. And that's not what we're looking for. Now there's 2 things that we need to subtract. What were they? 220 and A. Is there anyone else that we can cross out? H.
Oh.
Because it has it separate. So now the question is, which one is it? So let's read this one little part right here. The Shayla subtracts her age part. So Shayla subtracts her age A from 220. So what are we starting with? Are we starting with A or the 220? The 220 from 220. Meaning this is your starting point. So we want the 220 first and then the A. So this one's going to be G. You will have multiple choice on your test. I want to say the front part, the front page is going to be open-ended, write out the equation and write the dependency statement, and then after that it's going to go into multiple choice part like this. So which scenario can be best represented by the equation y is equal to 100 times x plus 500. So just looking at that equation, what is our starting value? 100 or 500? 500. So I'm just going to write start next to it. And that 100, what are we going to be doing? Multiplying. This is our rate. Like how much it's increasing by. And we're going to be adding the 2. So we have to start with 500. So looking at these 4 options, which one is starting with 500? A profit made by selling X products at $100 each after selling 500. It says each, which means to multiply, but it says that you also sold 500 products, which means you're going to make some kind of profit. So no, it's not that one. The loan balance after a $100 down payment. Well, $100 down payment, that's a starting amount. That's not what we're starting with. We're starting with 500, so that part's wrong. The volume of water in 500-gallon tank after X minutes, if the initial volume of water is 100 gallons, so not right, because they're saying the initial is 100. So process of elimination would let us to believe it's D, but let's read it to make sure. The amount in a savings account with initial deposit of 500 and a monthly deposit of $100 for X months. So yes, that is it. So things that you want to keep in mind when you're taking your test. Independent, dependent, which is the X, which is the Y. You also want to keep track of your math words, circling them and all that fun stuff.